This is Great American Movies. Tonight, I review the following. I begin my review with Best of the Best. Best of the Best is a 1989 American martial arts film directed by Bob Radler and produced by Philip Ree, who also co-wrote the story and co-stars in the film. The film also starred Eric Roberts, James Earl Jones, Sally Kirkland, Simon Reed, and Chris Penn. The plot revolves around a team of American martial artists facing a team of South Korean martial artists in a martial arts tournament. Several subplots pop up in the story: moral conflicts, the power of the human spirit triumphing over adversity, and the meaning of life are some themes. Now, I've watched a lot of sports movies, and I can tell you right now that this certainly isn't Rocky, and you can get a feel of Rocky while you're watching parts of the movie because some of the training that's going on in the film by the characters, but it's just another film mimicking Rocky. The story isn't really there. Why is it that the American team has to go against the Korean team specifically? To me, if you're saying best of the best, it would make more sense to me that the American team would have been in a world tournament. I would rather recommend a movie called The Quest with Jean-Claude Van Damme than this movie. I see they were trying in this film, but it isn't a great film. There are better sports movies than this. Coming up, I reviewed the animated movie Balto. The next film up for review is the 1995 film Balto. According to our trusted source, Wikipedia, Balto is a 1995 American live-action animated adventure film directed by Simon Wells, produced by Amblin Entertainment, and distributed by Universal Pictures. The film is loosely based on a true story about the dog of the same name who helped save children infected by a disease in the 1925 serum run to Nome. The film stars Kevin Bacon, Bridget Fonda, Jim Cummings, Phil Collins in a dual role, and Bob Hoskins with Miriam Margolyes in the live-action sequences. The live-action portions of the film were shot in New York City's Central Park. The plot is, in New York City, an elderly woman, her granddaughter, and the latter's Siberian Husky Blaze are walking through Central Park looking for a memorial. As they seat themselves for a rest, the woman tells her granddaughter a story about Nome, Alaska 70 years earlier in the winter of 1925, shifting the film from live action to animation. Balto, a young wolf dog, lives in rural Nome with his adoptive family, consisting of a snow goose named Boris Gusanov and two polar bears, Muck and Luck. Being half-wolf, Balto is despised by dogs and humans alike. The only dog and human in town who are kind to him are Jenna, a purebred Siberian Husky, and Rosie. He is in love with Jenna, but is often bullied by champion sled dog Steel, a fierce and arrogant Malamute who also has a crush on Jenna. Now, the only thing that makes Balto work is that it's based on a true story about children who were very sick, and they depended on Balto and the snow dogs to get the medicine for them. This movie has great action. It's realistic in most places of the movie. It has humor, and the humor in the movie doesn't go over the top, especially for an animated movie like this one. Everything works in this film, especially when they switch from live action to animation. All of it works and is done very, very well. This is a movie that I would recommend, and I dub this movie as one of the great American movies of all time. The final movie review is up next.
Taken lightly. No one knows its secrets.
Jones, do you realize what the Ark is? It's a transmitter. It's a radio for speaking to God.
Harrison Ford stars in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and this will be the final review for tonight. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a 1981 American action-adventure film directed by Steven Spielberg and written by Lawrence Kasdan, based on a story by George Lucas and Philip Kaufman. It stars Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, Paul Freeman, Ronald Lacey, John Rhys Davies, and Donald Elliott. Ford portrays Indiana Jones, a globe-trotting archaeologist vying with Nazi German forces in 1936 to recover the long-lost Ark of the Covenant, a relic said to make an army invisible. Teaming up with his tough former lover, Marion Ravenwood Allen, Jones races to stop rival archaeologist Dr. Renee Belloc Freeman from guiding the Nazis to the Ark and its power. Now, Lucas conceived Raiders of the Lost Ark in the early 1970s, seeking to modernize the serial films of the early 20th century. He developed the idea further with Kaufman, who suggested the Ark as the film's goal. Lucas eventually focused on developing his 1977 space opera, Star Wars. Development on Raiders of the Lost Ark resumed that year when he shared the idea with Spielberg, who joined the project several months later. While the pair had ideas for set pieces and stunts for the film, they hired Kasdan to fill in the narrative gaps between them. Principal photography began in June 1980 and a $20 million budget, and concluded the following September. Filming took place on sets at Elstree Studios, England, and on location mainly in La Rochelle, France, Tunisia, and Hawaii. Now, obviously, if anyone actually sees the Ark of the Covenant, you don't want to touch it or go anywhere near it. I don't know why it had to be the Ark of the Covenant that Indiana Jones went after. It could have been the Lost City of Gold, El Dorado, or something of that nature. But this movie is full of action and adventure. Now, some action sequences took too long for me in some parts of the movie, but overall, George Lucas had created a masterpiece. Sadly, some people don't give credit to Lucas as being one of the great storytellers of our time. But it's time for people to give Mr. Lucas a big thank you for making a great American film like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I thought that Harrison Ford was just a natural, and all of the cast did very well in this film. I did ask myself questions while watching the film, such as why was the US government going for the Ark of the Covenant, and why didn't Indiana Jones just tell the US government no and stick to adventures where he gives artifacts to a museum? I also asked the question that since the US government was seeking the Ark of the Covenant, does that make them any better than the Nazis or worse? You know, questions like that. But overall, this film is one of the great American movies of all time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the show. God bless you, and keep watching great American movies.